Well, hello everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar. We are extremely excited to announce the release of our Active Directory integration for DNSFilter. And my name is Josh Lamb, the Marketing Director, but I'm joined here today by John Cohen, who is our Tech Support Manager, and Mikey Pruitt, who is our Product Manager, and was highly influential in getting this integration completed and finished. So whether or not you're an MSP or an IT administrator, this is something that makes your life much simpler, much easier to manage your users. So let's get started. In today's agenda, I'm just going to go over 3 simple topics. We're going to introduce our Active Directory integration, and then John Cohen, our Tech Support Manager, will show a demo deployment of how you get Active Directory up and running. So we're really excited about that. And then we'll open it up at the end for a Q&A with our product manager, Mikey Pruitt. So you can ask him any questions about implementation for your organization or anything else that might come to mind. So first, a little bit of the history of our Active Directory integration. Our product, as our product has grown, people have increasingly requested more integrations and capabilities so that they could make management a lot easier for their organization. So we have a very open development system. If you go to feedback.dnsfilter.com, you can actually vote on what we work on next. And so we're very public, very open about our development, and very customer driven. So Active Directory has come up as one of our most voted items coming into 2020. And so one of our goals was to build a really good, really smooth integration for it. So in January, we enabled per-user filtering for our roaming clients. So if you installed a roaming client, then it would grab the logged-on user, and you could filter based on that. So this is still an option that is there right now. If you have customers or organizations that don't have Active Directory in operation, then you can use this to still have per-user filtering. But then we entered our beta in early May for the official Active Directory integration, and then after that we released it just now in June. What are the benefits of Active Directory, and why would you want something like this? So in short, it makes your life as a system administrator or an MSP much simpler and can almost eliminate getting into the weeds of policy management. So you can set up a true set and forget policy system that corresponds to the organizational units that you have in your company. So the first benefit is congruence with your organization. So you'll see the same thing in the DNSFilter dashboard that you're used to dealing with in Active Directory. And this information will be kept in sync. So it's something that you don't have to manage after you've set it up. So any new users or groups that you add, so for example, people, new hires, people leaving an organization, people getting promoted, contractors coming on and coming off, they're all accounted for automatically. So your changes in Active Directory are synced over to DNSFilter. The second benefit is reduced maintenance. So because of all the syncing, you can have true set and forget policies. So you create the policies once that correspond to the groups in your organization, and then you can walk away. So if new needs come up, you can change things if you have to, but for most people, they tend to have the same policies for a very long period of time, and so you can actually just roll with the changes that you've already made previously. The third benefit is accurate reporting. So you'll be able to associate DNS queries with individual users in the Active Directory tree. So you can answer questions like, what did Bob from accounting visit yesterday? And similar questions about where users are going and what they're seeing. So you'll know who is attempting to access internet threats. You'll know who's attempting to visit unwanted websites and identify people that might need a talking to. So there's a few major components to the Active Directory integration. So the first is our sync tool. That's where you can actually sync with your Active Directory on-premise or Azure instance. We support both of them because we know a lot of customers are also migrating over to Azure. You can also run it on any computer. It doesn't have to be on the Active Directory server itself. It could be on a computer that can access the Active Directory tree. So as long as it meets that requirement, then you can run the sync tool on a computer that can do that. The second is the collections panel. So this is where you can see your user and group policies. So you'll be able to establish what are called collections, which are a container for policies, and you'll be able to apply them to your users there. And then the third component is the Data Explorer. This is our reporting view in DNSFilter. So you can slice and dice your reporting. You can view it from different angles. You can answer questions like which office has the most blocked phishing attempts, or where was Katie browsing the past few days. And so it allows you to get answers to those questions. Now let's talk about planning for deployment. Obviously, the first rule of planning is to make sure that you do it. You can avoid consequences. As you can see in the picture here, things that happen when you're not looking ahead and watching for what's coming next. In truth, the Active Directory integration really doesn't have a huge amount of risk, so you wouldn't be setting anything up that you can't easily change. It's something that isn't that bad to set up. But there are a couple considerations to just make it a smooth process for you. So the first is to make sure that you have the OUs that you actually want. So we're assuming that your users are logically grouped into the groups that you would like to see in DNSFilter. There's a couple of ways to get around that, but in practice, it's better to have a functional OU hierarchy to make things simpler. So if there's anything that you need to clean up on the Active Directory side, that's a good step to take just to make sure things go smoothly. The second is to think through policy precedents. So John will show us in the demo in a few minutes how cool this is. Basically, it's just drag and drop. It's very simple. But you want to think through how you want to set your policy precedents. So a common example of this is the executives group. You might want an executives policy that takes precedence over the policy for the different divisions. For example, if you had sales, development, marketing, you might want the executives to make sure that they have a separate and more open policy. The third thing is to decide where you want to run the sync tool. So we just hinted on that a few minutes ago, but it doesn't have to be the Active Directory server. It could be a local computer. It could be a virtual machine. Basically any machine that can access your Active Directory information. So now I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to John Cohen now so that he can show us what everything looks like and show us actually how to get started with the integration. So take it away, John.
So first things first, let's just give you guys a quick background of what we're looking at. Most of you are probably extremely familiar with this window, but this is just our Active Directory users and computers window to show you our tree. This is, of course, just for demo purposes, so it's not going to be as fleshed out as what some of you are currently managing. But we have our DNSFilter OU with some computers, desktop, laptops, and users, and the various departments. So these do have actual people in it. And if we go to the dashboard, as you're all probably quite familiar with this one, we've now added a few new windows, a few new pages that you're able to access. The first one we're going to go through is the Sync Tools page. This is where you can manage, rename, or add and delete sync tools. And to do so, we just need to click on Install Sync Tool. We're going to name it something like Demo Webinar and continue. And then we're presented with the Install Your Sync Tool page. Now, as you all most likely know, we do offer or do have already a secret key that is binded to your roaming clients. This is, or to your sites and roaming clients. So this is a little bit different. As the sync tool inherently is a lot more sensitive in what it's pulling, this secret key will disappear if I leave this page. So we're going to want to make sure to copy that. And then just step 2, download and install it. The installation is quite run-of-the-mill. Just got to click through the prompts. I have already installed it, so it is ready to go here, right here. So if we're looking at the first page that we're presented with, it is your secret key and the frequency. The frequency meaning the time cycle of when the sync tool touches your server and sends that information over to us, your Active Directory. So we're actually going to change that to 5 minutes, and we're going to copy over the secret key. Next thing is the AD server settings tab. Here it's pretty intuitive, pretty self-explanatory. We got a server list and server information with the server object list that's going to be populated in a few moments. So the first thing I'm going to do is add the server. Because I am doing this on a Active Directory server and not a domained computer or Active Directory joint computer, it's going to populate all the information automatically that it needs. And again, we're on the server that we're going to be pulling the information from, so I do not need to provide a username and password. But this functionality is available on any domain computer, or even a non-domained computer that is on the same network, as long as you have the username and password required to pull this information from your Active Directory. So currently this is not available, or it is available on both, but my server, the test server here, is not running TLS. So we're just going to test the connection. Connection test was successful, and we're going to load the tree. So instantly it pulls pretty much everything. But really all I want is the DNSFilter OU computers and users. So I'm going to checkbox those, click save. And if all is added correctly, if I go back to the sync tool, we can tell that the demo webinar has been added, and we can also see that its first sync was just now a few seconds ago. So what does this mean? It basically means that all of these OUs and users in here, whoops, that one's empty. For example, these have been now grabbed and sent to our servers. So if I go to collections and I'm going to create a new collection, we're going to name, or we're going to first set it to managed. Manual versus managed, I'll go over that in just a second, but managed means that it is going to be a sync tool grabbed list, and manual can be added from any users your roaming clients picked up without the sync tool. But we're going to go with the managed option. We're going to name it the webinar collection, and we're going to add that. So it can right off the bat see all the sync tools I have installed, and we're going to only sync the DNS. There we go. DNSFilter.internal, DNSFilter OU, and the DNSFilter OUs for computers and users. And here are all the OUs for the different departments. And I can then also toggle all the users that are inside of these different OUs that we've created. So if we save these changes, I can now go back to my collections tab, view the webinar collection, and I will then be able to see, where are you? There it is. Oh, I will then be able to edit and see all of the ones I've created. So if I move over to the users tab, I'm able to view all the various users that I've synced from my sync tool, and to also see which part or which collection these users are a part of or members of. And this is going to come into play here in a few moments. But we can manage our users just like you would normally, as well as now view which collections they're a member of. So in the collections tab, if I have a let's say a VP or a VIP person in my company, and they're part of the webinar collection, as well as the VP collection, but I want them to have a lax policy versus the webinar collection, which I just want them to have the generic block adult content. We can then set the priority by dragging and dropping any and all collections that we have. So obviously the VP should be first priority. This way it picks up as the highest. It's going to be the highest priority, which means that the policy applies to it and not the block adult content policy that the number 4 here webinar collection has. And that's pretty much it for the sync tool. We do also have the, as Mike did mention, is that we have the Azure AD sync tool as well. I do not have a demo for you guys today to show this off, but our documentation does cover that extensively, where you can basically just add a Azure AD into the sync tool as well, and it will sync in the same exact way that I just showed you. And that's pretty much it for the sync tool.
Awesome. Thanks for that demo, John. Now, some of you on the call currently use DNSFilter, but some of you might just be in the consideration stage. You're looking at the options out there in order to protect your organization. So I wanted to take a moment and say that you really should give DNSFilter a try. We are a very simple, very elegant way to protect your users. And obviously, when I use the term simple, I mean it's simple to deploy. It's very easy to get started. There's a lot of complexity to what happens, but that's what we do. We defend you from the threats that are out there on the internet. We actually use an artificial intelligence scanning engine, and in combination with 66 different high-quality external threat feeds. So it's a very simple solution to deploy, but very leading edge in terms of defending you from internet threats in a very elegant way. You can also manage everything remotely in a dashboard, as you see here on this slide. It's very easy to set and assign policies that correspond to your users. So for a lot of people, once they deploy DNSFilter, they have a visibility and a control over their network that they've never had before, because DNS touches every device and every application. And so as a part of this webinar today, if you are not a DNSFilter customer, we'd like to offer you an extended free trial period, kick the tires, test things around, see how deployment would work for your organization. And you can sign up right on the homepage, get started. There's no commitment, there's no obligation in order to test things out. So I'm going to hand it over now to Mikey Pruitt, who is our product manager, so that he can take over with the question and answer portion. So don't feel like you have to hold back. Ask Mikey anything that you want about our Active Directory integration or about our service in general, and we'll be glad to answer your questions. So take it away, Mikey.